TRW, taking a look at Khyber Rifles magazine game from the Wargamer, number 34, from October 1984. So there's the background article, Afghanistan, Britain's Imperial Migraine, Historical Background to Khyber Rifles by Ted Feary, the designer of the Khyber Rifles game. Some commentary at this point. I mean, some things have definitely become clearer, or some things have developed, and it's it's time to make some commentary, although this, of course, well, actually the nature of the commentary will be readily apparent. So I wanted to say that even though I'm going to do some commentary now, I actually want to push on and get to melee. One thing I did figure out is that melee is an attack counterattack, which I've always liked, actually. So the attacker is going to attack, and then the defender is going to attack. So that helps a little bit explain the interesting, like the rocky terrain there. How when you go to melee, the attacker gets 1.5, the defender times 2. So the attacker is going to attack at 1.5, defender is going to counterattack at double. I think the idea is, I do believe the designer's idea is that as those troops come attacking through the rocky terrain, they have the benefit of that terrain, which, I don't know, it's understandable now. Okay. We're starting turn 6 here, so again it's going to be the native tribesman's player turn. First thing, I had the British in that hedgehog. I think I definitely maximized the defensive, maximized the defense for the British. But in maximizing the defense for the British, they did not maximize their fields of fire. So, for example, this stack here is back from the crest. They're not seeing anything, but they are part of the defense. So, I mean, they're in an improved position there. I mean, they're part of the defense, but they're just not seeing anything over that crest, for example. And there are a few other examples around here. So, maximized the continuous defense and suffered some in fields of fire. And the effect of that is that it was good for the native tribesmen to generally come at the short side of the defense, because they did manage to minimize the fire that they took from the British. That surprised me a bit. There's more routing here, as you can see, so it's more surprising that these guys are left. Now, we'll see how this happens. So basically half of the force about is left within 2 hexes of the first British positions. But still, they're going to have to survive. They're going to have to survive British volley fire. Then they're going to have to survive opportunity fire as they move adjacent to the British in order to get into melee. I mean, they do have benefit in melee, right? So I guess I never pointed this out, I don't think, that the British don't want a melee because they have 6 firepower, or what do they call it, fire factor, and only a 4 melee factor. That's somewhat reversed. 3 fire factor for most of the native tribesmen, but 6 for their melee factor. So basically, unit for unit, the British are double the tribesmen armed with modern weapons. These are tribesmen armed with older weapons, but there are more of the modern weapons. So comparing the British infantry to the tribesmen with modern weapons, the British are double just in fire factor alone. Then you add on the volley fire, but to set that aside, unit by unit, they're double in fire factor. The tribesmen are 50% better in melee. So they're going to have to survive British volley fire, then they're going to have to survive opportunity fire as they move adjacent. Then they can get to melee. And by the way, since the tribesmen are moving to get adjacent to the British, they're not getting that offensive fire. I'm not sure I made that very clear, but when the native tribesmen move, they cannot fire in their following offensive fire phase. That seems to be a pretty significant penalty. Okay. But I'm surprised this many got this far. This is how many, I mean, quite a few tribesmen units have already been killed. What is this, about 8? Yeah, 8 tribesmen units have already been killed. And the only thing they did was panic. Yeah, one British unit panicked there. They were in this building here, up here on the level 2 height. The tribesmen shot from down here, got lucky. They did get lucky too. They almost eliminated them outright. But anyways, they panic moved, but they're able to stop here because this is an improved position. So they don't go. At first I was thinking how disappointing it was that the unit's going to go running off the hill, which didn't make any sense. But no, they should panic move towards cover. Cover includes buildings, and when they get there they can stop. So they actually just panicked and ran to the next hex and stopped at the improved position there. Now, having said all of that, 2 things. One, great concept. I wish there was a completely updated version of this. I really do. I just think it's a great concept for a game. That's one. 2, I would do things quite differently. And I mean quite differently. Okay, so first of all, movement. To me, it doesn't make any sense that the British and the native tribesmen have no difference in their movement capabilities. I mean, it looks to me like they're identical. It is, the movement allowances are identical, and there's no differentiation for movement point cost per terrain. That does not make sense. And I think that the easiest thing to do, I thought about, basically I think the native tribesmen should be able to move easier over this terrain. Not dramatically so, this isn't like a double capability type thing. But they should be able to move easier for a number of different reasons. Having to do with training expectations, uniforms, and acclimatization. Or however you say that word. But then I was thinking, well, wait a minute. In clear terrain, I would say they're effectively equal. So then I was thinking, because I was thinking about giving the native. So this is what I would do if I were going to make this much more interesting to me. First, I thought increasing the native tribesmen's movement allowance by maybe 20%. I thought about 33%, then 25%. Then I finally went down to maybe just 20% more. But then I was thinking, no, because that's going to make them more capable of movement even in the clear. And that's not what I'm getting at. I'm getting at anything other than clear. Actually, I should say anything other than clear, but not man-made. So not the building. So it's really just the rocky scrub, the hills, yes. Yeah, I guess it's those. It's the rocky scrub and hills. So I think maybe the better thing to do would be to leave 122 for the tribesmen and plus 123, and make the British higher costs. So it's 1, the same for clear, maybe 133 and plus 234, maybe something like that. Or maybe this should be maybe the tribesmen should have plus 0, 1, 2, and the British have 1, 2, 3. Or maybe the British even have 1, 2, 4 or something like that. But anyways, make the adjustments here, focusing really on the natural broken or rough terrain, and make it a bit easier for the tribesmen to do that. So that's that. Then I'm thinking about command and control. And I'm thinking maybe I don't want to do a lot to it. I don't like overwrought command and control mechanisms much anymore. I mean, this is small unit tactical here, small unit, small action here. So I was thinking maybe so this is really quickly what I was thinking, not thought through and certainly not tested, but maybe you total up the number of leaders you have. So for the tribesmen, it would be, what would it be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think the British have 4. So the British have 4, tribesmen have 5. The number of leaders you have on the board is the number of basically hexes you can act with. Then I don't see why the stacking limits are the same for both sides. I think that the tribesmen would not be as comfortable and as trained to mass like the British, if the British want to. Anyways, I was thinking off the top of my head, maybe we have a stacking limit of 3 in the game. Maybe 3 stays for the British, but maybe the tribesmen maybe they need to be limited to 2 units per hex. Basically, they don't want to mass like a European army. They want to stay spread out, relatively speaking. So that way, the C2 difference would play, right? So the British can act with a number of stacks or hexes equal to the number of units, leaders they have on the board, but each of those stacks could be up to 3. Then the native tribesmen, they can activate a number of hexes or stacks equal to the number of units they have on the board, or leaders they have on the board, but they're going to be less dense, right? And then you go back and forth is what I meant. So like so in this case it would be and I think it would have to be, you have to do it. There's no passing. I don't think there's passing at this scale and scope. So it would be 5 stacks, and I wonder if you don't count what they call disgraced leaders. Let's say you didn't count the disgraced leaders, so now they only have 2 basically good order leaders, so they activate 2 hexes stacks. Then it would go to 4 British stacks hexes, then back 2 tribesmen, then back to 4. To do that though, you'd have to do all your fire to make it beneficial. You'd have to do each time you activate the stacks, you're doing fire and movement. That's doable. Obviously you're adding some markers. Okay. Much more importantly is I figured out what got me started even thinking about this, because I don't normally think about how I would completely revamp a game. I don't normally do that. The combat system here is hugely problematic. I mean, hugely. I was actually going to diagram it out, but then I thought maybe it wasn't worth quite that. But basically, okay, so in in combat, you either have no effect, which is an absolute no effect, unscathed, period. Then you have morale checks, and you have a morale check normal, you have a morale check +1, meaning a little bit harder to pass, and a morale check +2, which is even more hard to pass your morale check. And then you have losses 1, 2, and 3, and the losses 1, 2, and 3 cause morale checks +1, +2, +3 for all the units remaining in the hex. That's very, very, very stark. And basically, in practice, what it shows is units are either outright destroyed, or they're running full speed away. It's one or the other. That's way too dramatic, and I'm not even sure what that's supposed to really show. But anyways, what I was thinking was just to change things up and get things more interesting. First of all, I would give all units, all these units are supposed to be 10-man units, so assuming I didn't change the scale, which I actually might look at doing, but let's say I don't change the scale, I'd give all units 5 steps. At the 5th hit, the unit's eliminated. That's based on each hit incapacitates 2 soldiers in one way or another. Doesn't mean that they were even hit with a bullet, but each hit incapacitates 2 soldiers, or 1/5 of the unit. So again, you have hit markers 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th hit. And actually, I was thinking the unit isn't even removed from the board. I was thinking maybe, I'm just going to go with what I was thinking. I would even say that the unit is replaced with basically a remnant unit counter. And these remnant unit counters are pretty much going to run away, but once they get to safety, they'll sit and they can be reformed. So call them remnant counters. So even to eliminate removing a bunch of counters from the map, I would say 5 hits and the unit is eliminated and replaced with a remnant counter. Okay. Even more importantly, when a unit is fired at, so what the game has as morale checks here. Let's see if I can remember what I was thinking. Right. Well, basically, you're going to have pins instead, right? So fire. A unit may be pinned. Actually, it would almost be the Well, I was thinking you go from, not automatically, but there's the possibility a unit is pinned, and then when you're pinned, your morale actually goes up 1. Or if you're hit and you so you're hit. There could be some exceptions, but basically you're fired on, and if the attack is successful, you wind up being pinned, you're staying in the hex, your morale goes up 1, or you're panicked. You stay in the hex for the time being, and your morale goes down 1. Then if you're fired on again, you should be an easier target. But you should be an easier target because it'll be harder for you to pass that morale check again. And then when you get to the rally phase or the rally step, if you're pinned, you try to rally. If you're successful, you're in the clear again. You're not successful, you're just still pinned. Pinned cannot move, but pinned can fire, but not even half fire. I'm thinking maybe like a rem. I was thinking maybe the British fire with only 2 fire factors and the tribesmen 1. So we're talking about a third fire factors. About a third is remaining when you're pinned, so you can still fire. And maybe when you're pinned you can't combine. Well, actually that would be difficult, because actually that'd be difficult with the game rules as they are now, because all fire into a hex must be consolidated. So, or maybe the penalty alone of being reduced to 1 or 2 fire factors is enough. But pinned, you can still fire. It's a lot less effective. Then when you're at the rally phase or step and you're panicked, you roll, and if you pass, maybe you even go to pinned. But if you fail, then you rout. Yeah, then you rout. So more steps, obviously, for losses. Pin should be just as likely, if not a bit more than panicked. Panicked are easier targets, so they're a bit easier to force to route. Yeah, route, right, because if you have a good order. So now you have a good order target. You fire on it. Take this here. You're pinned, but if you're panicked, you go like you're panicked, and now your morale is 1 less. Then you're fired on again. If you pass that reduced morale, you just stay there panicked. If you fail, then you would rout. Right then and there, you're routing. But basically something more to, not this either or, not perfectly good order, full capabilities, to routed and virtually no capabilities. And of course here you have that situation where you need to have leaders in the rear to police up runners or routers. Now I was thinking, even if that's true, it's like, why represent that, really? I don't know. Yeah. It's probably enough for now.